Hello and welcome along to another episode of this FM19 story, The Head Coach with me, Daniel. It's Season 7, Episode 11, and it's by far the biggest game of the series so far today, as we play Tottenham Hotspur in the FA Cup final. That's right, we finish our 7th season with the biggest game of the series, and after leaving Barnsley mid-season, a really tough decision, this could make it all worthwhile. However, you may have noticed from the top of the screen, we have got a player crisis on our hands. It's not going so well, and we're a little bit short going into this game. We've got Lavinas away at the Under-20s World Cup, Dabor's cup tied as is Konza, Alzani and Klein are out injured, and we've got 3 other players doubtful, leaving us with the absolute bare bones for the biggest game of the series. So let's go and have a look at the squad for today. We obviously haven't played any games off camera, and our plans for next year will be shaped hugely by this. If we do somehow manage to win, we'll be in the Europa League qualifying stages, we'll be able to attract a higher quality of players, I presume get a higher budget, and our director of football will be able to have a field day. But if not, we're going to be back to our same struggle next year, with a club in a poor financial position and a lot of older players out injured a lot. So let's go and look at the preview for the game. Spurs are favourites. The only slight positive is their Ballon d'Or winner Horace Stewart's out injured, so fortunately for us, he's not going to be playing today. Thomas Tuchel's in charge of them. He said I wouldn't be able to cut it at Newcastle, so he's probably eating his words today, and I'm sure he'll claim he's the greatest manager on earth if he beats our second string side. So let's go and look at the team. We'll show you all the players that are out. I've not changed the squad so you can see how much it's impacted from the last game. Konza the right back, he's cup tied. Left back Jamal Lewis is doubtful. Holding midfielder Danilo's doubtful. Arzani on the right wing's injured and his backup's on international duty. Matijou's still not back from injury. And Dabor's cup tied as well. So we're absolutely down to the bare bones. We might even have to put some under 23s on the bench, as I'm not sure we've got 18 players. But perhaps the most important bit of news today, we've got 2 options at right back. One of them is Congolo, who can't really play there, but he can play right wing back, and the other option is of course the youngster Martin Chapman. So 16-year-old Martin Chapman is going to start the FA Cup final. I don't see that I have another option who can play there naturally, so it's going to be one of the biggest days in that lad's career. We're going to change the defenders back to central defenders. We had Riederwald in there a couple of times, so that's why we were playing with ball-playing defenders, but for now we want to go back to as simple as possible. Jamal Lewis is doubtful. He is just about fit, but we'll bring Ricker in. It's a position where the difference isn't so great, so it doesn't matter having Ricker in the team, and he's actually slightly more capable defensively, which will probably help us out. Sigurdsson and Iwobi are fit, but we need someone for the right hand side. I think it's going to have to be Krunic, because I think he's the only one that's fit. The other alternative was to bring in Seferovic on the left, and then perhaps put Iwobi over on the right hand side, but I don't really want to mess with Iwobi's position when he's been our star player this year. The other option we've got is the holding midfielder. I'm not sure what we're going to do there. I think we're going to bring in Rivera and go back to our normal formation. I wouldn't normally do that against the big sides, but we want to have players who are fit in the team. So who else can go on the bench? Jeffrey's a goalkeeper. We'll always do that for a cup final. And then we've got to find one more to go in there somewhere. Otamendi's the only other player in here. So let's see if there's any under 23s or 18s that are good enough. It's a sad situation to be in for the FA Cup final. We've got one 2-star midfielder who's going to be leaving in the under 23s. And then in the under 18s, what have we got there? It could be having 2 of them on the bench. Andy Barber's got 3.5 potential. What's he rated like? God, he's awful. He's a left winger though, so let's put him on there and just see if we have to use him today. I presume we won't need to, but you never know the way things are going. The one I've been putting on there recently is Liam Phillips, but he's a central striker and he got injured the one appearance he made. So before we get into this FA Cup final, I've shown you the injury crisis we've got. Let's see how that came about. We've had an awful run of form in the league, culminating in a really poor 5-1 defeat on the last day of the league season. But since that FA Cup tie, we've had quite a few games. We played Derby at home after the Millwall tie and won that comfortably. Wilson got a brace and Louise with one as well. We drew 0-0 away to Burnley before a run of 3 straight defeats, 3-0 away to West Ham, 2-0 at home to Brighton, and then 3-0 away to City. We then drew 2-2 at Southampton with Callum Wilson getting a brace before beating Millwall 3-1 on the last home game of the season. Locatelli got a late consolation for them, but Sigurdsson, Lavinas and Wilson had all scored for us. We lost 5-1 at Chelsea with Ozani getting the goal. That briefly made it 2-1, but Christian Pulisic absolutely tore us apart in that game. We played Tottenham today with half a squad left, and as you can see from my attitude, I don't hold up much hope with the lads we've got left. We're going to encourage them every step of the way and try to give them belief, but deep down I know it probably won't be enough. If we go and look at how the league table finished, we've done our job for the year. A fantastic performance from us. We finished in 13th on 47 points. It was really close between 9th and 14th. And remarkably, we finished above Arsenal in the league, which makes that FA Cup quarter-final look less of a shock. Horace Stewart is the top goal scorer in the Premier League. He's out of today's game, but they've got Harry Kane still, so he's not too bad, even though he's in his 30s now. Derby, Ipswich and Millwall all went down. The likes of Stoke and Wolves survived. Wolves, who we obviously nearly took over, but finished 13 points above. Brighton are up there in 6th place, and I'm not quite sure why they haven't been confirmed with a Europa League place yet. It seems a little strange. Maybe there's someone in the cup finals. Let's go and have a look at the Europa League quickly. I know I'm getting sidetracked, but I'm trying to put off the beating we're going to get in the FA Cup final. So I'm just going to look at the two finals. Man City are in the European Cup final, and Everton are in the Europa League final, which probably explains that situation a bit more clearly. So it could be Everton and us in the Europa League next year, or it could be Brighton and Southampton. We'll wait and find out. But let's go and get into the cup final. I'm very nervous for the game. You know that the lineup's basically what we've got left that's available. We've got 18 players, including 3 youngsters, 16-year-olds starting at right back. It's going to be a very difficult game. We've got Raya in goal, Ricker and Chapman the fullbacks, with Lascelles and Congolo in the middle. Douglas Luiz is the segundo volante. He was the hero in the semi-final. Can he do the same again? Rivera in central midfield. Iwobi, Sigurdsson and Krunic out of position in a 3-man support behind Callum Wilson up front. I'm not sure what the best role for Krunic is, so we're just going to leave him as a playmaker. Let's get into it, and fingers crossed we won't get embarrassed. This shows just how bad our injury crisis is. We're having to give a player on the bench a squad number for the FA Cup final. He's not been even in a thought of the first team before, and now he's on the bench for the biggest game of our career. I'm really devastated about the position we're in, but fingers crossed we can do ourselves justice today. It's a 4-2-3-1 for Spurs as well. Kane, Ali and Eriksson all still there at the front. They've got the likes of Luke Shaw and Casemiro in defensive positions, so they're very much a top squad, and we're going to have to be careful today. We're going to remind the players there's no pressure on them, especially without half of the team available. We've not looked good in training, but we've got to keep confidence high. We hope they'll miss Horace Stewart as much as we're going to miss our 6 or 7, and let's get into it with Eriksson getting the ball. Is Casemiro back to Davison Sanchez? He goes all the way back to the keeper. His name's Pardo Roques. That's a bit of a cool name. It's up towards Harry Kane, but the header's away, and thankfully the highlight ends. 5 minutes gone and we haven't conceded. That's about as much as I could have hoped for. It's a throw on the right for Tottenham, nearly 15 minutes in now. Headed away at left back, but it's gone to Ortega. He finds Casemiro. He switches it out to Luke Shaw, and there's plenty of time for them here. He goes inside to Casemiro again, curls it from 25 yards, but it's wide at a post and we can deal with that comfortably. Raya with a short goal kick to Congolo. He's got time to bring it forward. Can he find a man? He can't find the pass, so he goes long over the top. Callum Wilson chases. He's in one-on-one, but it's a great recovery by the defender. What was his name? Timmermans, who got back, and he's deflected it away for a throw. Brilliant defending, and we've had the first opening of the match. 10 minutes to the break, it's a corner to Tottenham. Eriksson delivers for Casemiro, but it's headed away. Ortega to Eriksson again, headed by Rivera. Alvarez from the edge, it's blocked again. Brilliant work from the lads flowing their bodies on the line. Chapman with the last one, the 16-year-old. Wonderful work by them. It's been a bit of a nothing half up until that point. Just a couple of highlights, and most of Spurs' shots coming from distance. It's about as much as we could have hoped for, and this put-together team absolutely pieced together, square pegs in round holes, and they are doing as much as they can to fight for the FA Cup for Newcastle. It's just the luck we're going to get, but hopefully we can nick a goal from somewhere. And here's Wilson in. Oh, he's put it straight at the keeper. He really should have scored that. A brilliant ball from Krunic. He's gone up to 7.2 for his match rating now, and Sigurdsson's corner's poor and just curls into the keeper's arms. I was really expecting better from Wilson. He's in brilliant form in front of goal, but unfortunately he's let us down that one. Just 2 shots on target in the whole game, and and we go into the break level, which I'm absolutely delighted with. Let's go and talk to the lads. We'll remind them again that there's no pressure on them at all, and fingers crossed they play just as fluently as they did in the first half, breaking up the Tottenham play. They might not be playing brilliantly in terms of football in possession, but what they are doing is pulling our game plan down to a T. That's all I can ask from the lads, and if we can get to penalties or extra time, I'd be absolutely delighted with their performances. We just had a warning that our two fullbacks were really struggling, so we've dropped them back to support roles as the wingers for Spurs have been pushed higher up the pitch now. So let's see if that makes a difference. It's Richarlison on the left. He finds Ortega. Now Recchia. He's coming inside. There's no pressure on him. Richarlison shoots and Richarlison scores. A long shot goes in at last. We've restricted them to it for the whole game. And look at the clear-cut chances down there. 2-0 and Wilson's wasted them. It's really disappointing from that side of things. But the lads have performed brilliantly. We're going to demand more. And fingers crossed now, if we make a couple of subs, it'll make a difference. It's really disappointing. Chapman's had a poor game, but what can I say to him? He's 16 years old and he's been thrown into an FA Cup final because of a huge number of injuries. Ricker's going to come off for Lewis. I know he's not fit, but he's got 3 months to recover after. Gylfi Sigurdsson's had a poor game. Ayoze Perez is going to come on for him. He's going to go as an advanced playmaker, and then Krunic is going to go to a winger role and see if that makes a difference as well. Perez will go on to an attack duty just to try and support Wilson. Douglas Luiz is under pressure and he's on a yellow, so we'll bring on Danilo for him. Another slightly injured man, but hopefully he'll do okay today. So let's get back into it and see if we can nick a goal from somewhere. Just over 10 minutes left, Alvarez gets it to Timmermans, the right back. I'm really impressed with the effort the lads have put in today, but unfortunately it's not enough. Richarlison shoots again and Raya has to tip it over. I'm presuming Richarlison's become world class on this game, as one, he's at Tottenham, who are doing very well in this series, and also he keeps scoring and having brilliant efforts from 30 yards. Let's have a look at him. He's an elite winger, so he's become very good, and what we could do to have him in our team today, where we've got a lack of wingers. To be honest, I'd be happy if we just had Arzani or Lavinas and not have to rely on central midfielders out there. Chapman's struggling with him since he's come on, but Dele Alli's got the ball in the middle now. It's an assortment of world-class players, and Ortega shot straight at Raya, but it doesn't look like we're going to get our goal. We're going to go to attacking. There's 5 minutes left, and at this point it's better to lose by 2 or 3. Rivera finds Iwobi on the left. He can try and get Wilson in, but switches it to Krunic. He's got time on the ball on the right. He's going to be forced back, is he? No, he goes to Iwobi. Back post, he's in. Oh, the keeper saves it. We've still had the only 2 clear-cut chances, but unfortunately we still trail 1-0. What we could do to have a couple of goal scorers or some composure in attacking midfield. Krunic gets the ball after the corner's headed away, and fingers crossed we'll get just one more chance. We're going to encourage the lads to push forward, and fingers crossed they'll do just that. The 3 minutes are up, the throw-in will come in, I think it'll be over any second. It is, we lose 1-0 in the FA Cup final, but a brilliant effort by the lads, considering how many players were missing, and we'll wait and see what Thomas Tuchel's comments are. He'll probably say it was a brilliant win and they absolutely dominated, despite us having the clear-cut chances. A really unfortunate day for the lads, and having to play a 16-year-old and start him for the first time in an FA Cup final shows just how short of players we were. But a really brilliant effort, and we can't fault the lads for what they've done there, and hopefully the board will back our director of football in the summer to help him improve the squad. But overall, I'm not too disappointed despite defeat. It's our first major cup final and we've lost, and to be fair, both cup finals we've had in this series, if we include the Northern Irish Cup final in season 1, we've lost both of them, but this one was completely different. We fought so hard and we're just unfortunate, and if we'd had a fully fit squad, I think we would have competed. So Tottenham lift the FA Cup. Tuchel praises his players for rising to the occasion. They weren't great at all. They played against a half second string Newcastle team and were lucky that our strikers didn't take the clear-cut chances. He's really annoying me in this series. I'm sure on my personnel screen he's on the worst opinion list, but we're not going to worry about that. We don't even want to give him time of day. We get £1 million, which is very important for our finances. Krunic was on form. We're going to praise him. He really created some good chances for us. A player who'll probably be off in the summer, but did well in that one. The squad get a bonus of £500,000, so we still make a profit at the club. That's good. The FA Cup review with the runners-up. Dover were the biggest overachievers. I'm not sure what round they got to, it doesn't say. And Everton were underachievers. I presume they got shocked in the 3rd round. We'll deal with the press conference in a moment, but let's go and do our season review quickly before we go off and complete our summer and watch what our director of football does. We'll also stick around a couple of days and see if we find out our transfer budgets for next year to see what he's going to have to work with. But let's put the lads in selection info order and we'll get all the unavailable players back in just so we can see how they've contributed. So obviously not all of the appearances will be us. They're going to have partly been under the previous manager earlier in the season. We'll also go and see if Barnsley got promoted as well and whether they'll be joining us in the Premier League next season. Raya made the most appearances as you might expect, closely followed by Iwobi, Wilson and Lascelles. The problem I have with those two, Wilson and Lascelles both over 30, and we've got to be careful with that moving forward. It's something they may not be capable of in the future. Luis Arzani, Congolo and Rivera are all up there, and then we're down to the rotational options. Sigurdsson and Lewis didn't really play until I was here, but both did a good job for me since. Radi Krunic is wanted, Watford are chasing him, so I'd imagine he's going to be off in the summer. A 31-year-old backup worth £20 million, and if we can get that, our director of football better take it. Matiju was our first choice right back when we were here. Unfortunately, he picked up an injury. Doesn't seem to have harmed him too much though. He may be able to compete for the team next year. Obviously, the last one to mention is young Martin Chapman. We kind of threw him under the bus in the FA Cup final, not by choice. We didn't have anyone else available, but a youngster at the club who's going to be a really bright prospect, and he's made 9 appearances since he came through, obviously including a start in the cup final. Lavinas is the other wonder kid we've got at the club, but he's really struggling to develop. I'm not quite sure what it is because most of the other players are doing well, but he seems to really be struggling. There's a club wanting him as well, Brighton, who are a top 6 team who have been in Europe the last couple of years, so if they give a big offer, our director of football might be forced to accept it. I'm not sure what will happen with that, we'll just wait and see. In terms of goals, Callum Wilson was top with 16. Iwobi reached double figures as well. He was very much the star player, as we'll see when we put them in rating order. Iwobi got the most assists with 9 too. Ricker with 6 from fullback, and then a few others with 5, 4 or 3. Mainly the attacking midfielders, and I don't know why I said 3, because nobody's got 3 assists in the squad. For average rating, just 2 players above a 7. Nathaniel Klein, who's just had an injury that will ruin his career. He was already declining physically at 34, and now with his fractured leg, he's unfortunately never going to recover at this level. Iwobi was the star man this season and will be the player we build our squad around. Hopefully our director of football won't sell him. He's worth £43 million, so if they get a big offer for a 29-year-old, 60-70 million, they may well sell him, but as long as they spend all that money on the squad, I'm not too worried. I'd much rather have him though and sell some of the other ones. Fingers crossed our director of football's listening. But let's quickly go and have a look at Barnsley, and then we'll skip a couple of days and see if we get our transfer budget for next season. Barnsley Football Club, where are they? Second in the Championship. That's got to be the end of the season. They must have got promoted, which is brilliant. They let Watford win the league, which isn't quite so good, but a comfortable 7-point gap to 3rd place. So Barnsley will join us in the Premier League next year, but let's skip a couple of days into the future and see if we can get news of how much our director of football has got to spend next season. We'll be back in a moment for that one. We're back with all the end of season review messages. I still can't see anything about transfers, but we've got a player going into the overall 11, which is Rick at the left back. Where are they now? The original best 11. Most of them are still at the club, but a few of them have moved on. Look at that, the likes of Masuaku, Dubravka, DeAndre Yedlin, Shah, Muto, and Tom Cleverley as well. Plenty of players there that we recognise from real life. The end of season awards, Iwobi got player of the season, followed by Lascelles and Arzani. Young player of the season, Lavinas. We can't disagree with any of that. For the season review, the ground was almost a sellout in terms of average attendance. I guess a lot of that was before we joined the club when they were sliding. They've used a lot of players, which is something we'd be keen to avoid next year, but hopefully our director of football will sign some stalwarts. Obviously, we still wait to see what budget he'll get. We don't need to worry about that one. The dynamics are poor in the dressing room because we've been on a poor run, but with a lot of injuries, what can you do with a small squad? We'll do the end of season team meeting in a minute. I'm sure it will be mid-table again. End of season confidence. Our job is secure with 57%. That's all we can ask. It proves we've done our job well. Injury report. There's loads of players who have been out, but unfortunately most of them are at the end of the season when it really mattered most. We'll bring them back at the end of June for 5 weeks of pre-season. Gives them 6 weeks off for their holidays. We'll be back in a moment where hopefully we'll have transfer budget news. We've got a new kit sponsor. That's a huge improvement on the deal. 15 million more. Sponsorships up very slightly. Broadcast revenues down in the Premier League. That's interesting. Almost everything else is up, just the prize money slightly lower as we finished a bit lower in the league, but obviously we took over in an awful position. The scouting budget's not going to change, it's always this number at the top clubs. Let's look at the initial budgets, just cross your fingers everyone. £52 million, that's exactly what we wanted to see. Fantastic stuff from the board who have backed us soundly there, and hopefully our director of football can spend that. Let me just remind you of our director of football, just in case you didn't see the episode we met him. Victor Orta has got fantastic stats, he's got good knowledge of England or Spain, and the club seems to be scouting the likes of Holland and Germany a lot, so I'm expecting to see some really good signings. The likes of Otamendi retiring on 150 grand a week should also help that as well, and I'm really excited for what the summer can bring. So we'll be back in the next episode for the start of season 8. Depending on how busy the summer is, we'll definitely have a roundup of all of our transfer action, and then if it's been a relatively quiet summer, we'll play our first game of the season as well. If not, we'll keep them separated so we can focus on our director of football's work. But if you did enjoy this episode and this season, please put a thumbs up on the video. Let me know in the comments what you thought of that FA Cup final performance and where you think our director of football needs to improve the squad in the summer. Are you pleased that we'll be getting to play Barnsley in the Premier League next year? And what are your thoughts on them dropping down to second since we left the club? Subscribe to the channel for daily FM19 content from my 2 long-term stories, this one The Head Coach and our other series Part of the Furniture with Torquay United. Season 8 of that series will start tomorrow with a transfer special, so make sure you come along and check that one out. I've really enjoyed making these episodes, so I hope you'll enjoy watching them too. But a massive thanks for watching and your continued support with the series as always. I really do appreciate it, and we'll see you next time for a transfer special.